today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Ted Aukerman, author of A Farmboy, A Tomboy, Jesus Freaks, and Divine Appointments. Welcome, Ted.
Hey, how's it going?
It is wonderful. I'm so glad to have you with us today. Before we really dive into the book, can you give everybody just a quick glimpse of what they're going to find when they open up the cover?
Well, it's 4 short novellas combined into one. It took me a while to do it, but it's just a strange little experiment that started, and turned into something. So I don't know what to say other than if you like to read stories, this is a bunch of stories.
Well, and what I liked about them is although there are a bunch of stories, some of the characters from one filter into another. Not all characters are present in all stories, but at the end, things wrap up. And so you kind of understand how they all fit together and how everybody kind of things finish out, which was really nice. Because there was a point in there where it was like, what does this have to do with that? And then it was like, oh, and so you do see it. And I like that. What made you decide to do that kind of story writing versus, say, just a regular novel, just to start to finish, write it out?
I think it's just because that's how I think, and and I'm super unorganized, as you can tell. I'm a musician, so we can only count to 4 and just repeat, So when it comes to planning out anything, that's not how I operate. I'm a pantser,
Okay.
and so you make it up as you go. And there was times when I would write myself into a corner, put it down, and not write again for months, and then pick it back up, and suddenly something would happen.
Right.
So that's how I did it. It was really just a weird deal how it got started. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I heard an audible voice. How weird that sounds, maybe, but it said, "Do you remember that book report you did on Stephen Foster?" And I'm like, first of all, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The fact I heard a voice kind of freaked me out, and that it knew that I had done a report in 3rd grade on Stephen Foster for writing Way Down Upon the Swanee River. And I thought, yeah, I do remember that. In fact, that's when I was working in the bookmobile. We lived in a little town in Ohio that was serviced by a bigger town that brought books in, and I was the one chosen to be on the bookmobile. And so that's all I cared about was reading and stuff. So when the voice said that was your favorite, and that's when you decided you wanted to be a writer, here I am 60 years later going, that's true.
I did want to be a writer, right?
And I never knew what I was going to be when I grew up, but maybe this is the answer. So I got up and started writing, and it was a story about something that I had no idea, but it was like it was writing itself at the very beginning. So a couple days later, a friend of mine shows up who I hadn't seen for a long time, who lives in Mexico. And so we decided to go out to eat, and I go, "So what do you do now?" Because I figured she was retired or something. She goes, "I'm an online book editor."
You were like, oh my gosh, right?
I'm like, "Well, I just started writing. Can you do me a favor and read a chapter and tell me if I'm delusional or if I should keep going?" So she read it, and like my boss, she says, "I need 3 more chapters by next week." And she pushed me to where I had to get up and start doing this. And so we accomplished that. We learned how to do editing in Google Docs together and stuff. And she's like very proper, and I have trouble with tenses. So she would fix that, and so it sounded less hillbilly like and more, like a 7th grade author. And so she fixed that up, and she ended up doing all that for nothing. And then that was through 4 different books. And she helped me get my feet wet because I had no idea about publishing. All I knew was, as an artist, I've printed CDs before because that was the gold standard,
Right.
So you get 1,000 CDs, and I bet I got 500 still in the closet.
Right. And
Because
now CDs are nothing, right? Like you can give them
right,
away as paperweights or whatever. Right.
yeah, they're
Right.
coasters.
Right, absolutely. So your author notes suggest that this is a work of fiction, however, it may be somewhat autobiographical. So who are you in the story, and how much is fiction and how much of it is truth?
Wow, there's a lot of truth in Skip and me, but there's also a lot of made up stuff. It's probably almost every story in it has a grain of some kind of truth that's been, you know, expanded a bit.
Twisted and turned into something, right?
Right, and it's like that license you get as you're learning that character, you know, because I felt I was Skip when I started writing. I made him be adventurous and a ladies' man. But of course, none of that was true. But the I did go on a mission trip but I went to Africa, and it was just a short trip, uh, and so that's where, when he goes to the Bahamas,
Right.
he and falls in love with Callie. That that was not true, but when I was in Africa, there was a girl there that everybody called my wife because she claimed me. And
Well, maybe you are more of a ladies' man than you think. I mean,
well, this was in the '80s, so I still didn't look like an old man, but she was just really cute, and like in the mornings I'd wake up and she'd be sitting at my door.
right, right.
And making me coffee. And one of the things that I learned from the culture, I would get up as a hillbilly guy, walk outside barefoot, and that was an embarrassing act to her, because if her neighbors saw that I was walking out barefoot, then that meant she hadn't provided footwear for me when I needed it.
Oh my
So
goodness.
she ran out the first day. I'm out there just going, yeah, this is beautiful here. And she ran out and took her shoes off and put them on. Said, please put these on. Please put them on. Who knows, you're going to offend some other culture just
Because you
by
walk
being,
barefoot. Yeah.
yeah. So just things like that. That's how all my life has been embellished stories anyway. But I think I always wanted to be a storyteller. And when I was a little kid, we would sit in a circle and tell the adventures of Ted and his mini bike, And I remember even thinking back upon all the days of being an adult and having to act like one, that I never really wanted to be one. it just suddenly happened, where you sell your hot rod and you buy diapers, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
And the next thing you know, right?
yeah, but when I retired, I was like, all bets are off. I got to work on this book and get it done. So that was how that came about. It was just it was kind of thrust on me, and I wasn't working on any music at the time. It just was perfect timing to get started. And so that's how
Yeah, no.
the book started.
I love that you had the voice. I've had voices tell me things too. And so when you said it probably sounds crazy, it's like, no, not as crazy as you think, because I've heard the same kinds of things where it's like, it's loud and it's in your head, and you almost look around to see, is anybody else hearing the voice, right?
Right.
So yeah.
So
Go
I
ahead.
wish I knew who it was, if it was God or an angel or my imagination, which was really, he was doing a good job on masking my voice. But anyway.
No, I get it. Let's let's talk titles. I hate coming up with titles. Hate it. Like, I would rather write 3 novels than come up with one title. It just makes me crazy. How did you come up with your title? And it's a long one.
Right.
In fact, whenever I have to say your book, I have to look down and say A Farmboy, A Tomboy, Jesus Freaks, and Divine Appointments, because I can't remember it. But how did you come up with that title?
Well, I had lots of different working titles, as it was Skip's story and then other things. But if you notice, the 4 main characters in the book is one's a tomboy, Skip's a farm boy, Pastor Duke is the Jesus freak, and then Divine Appointments is just how it was all tied together at the end.
Right.
And it is like, I don't know. I always, some of the books that I remember being influenced by as a kid, they had descriptive titles, and I couldn't really use Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but, I would have if I could have.
Right. I get that. So with Divine Appointments, tell me, what is that definition to you?
That's when, for no reason other than serendipity, something falls into your lap that you can only go, God, did you do that? And because all through the book, things like that happened, with Skip and Monique especially, and Callie. It just, that's kind of what I believe and have lived in my life, that the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord. And I want to think that I can, not maybe qualify as the good man, but as one go in that direction. And so that's where it all came from.
And when you look at it, you had a divine appointment in getting your book done, because not only did you hear the voice, but then you run into an old friend who happens to be an online editor. And if that's not a divine appointment, then what is, right? And I've had the same thing. Like my first book is a divine appointment. Like the ending is something that a friend told me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. It needs to be like a story. And that's, I think a lot of times books maybe come from those. Like we see this unusual pairing and we think, oh my gosh, we need to write something about that. And then that's where the book comes from. So I like that. When someone sits down with your book, finishes it, they close it up, other than saying, wow, that's a good story, is there anything you hope they get from it?
Well, I think one of the best compliments I ever got was a lady said, I finished your book the other day, but I'm still living there. And yeah, you get it, because
I do.
Because it's like, I took them somewhere. That's what this is all about, And if they get that no matter what they've screwed up in their life, that it still has a possibility of working for good if you lean the right direction. Well, there's my cat. She's probably here to tell me off, but that's kind of what I would hope would happen, that someone sees that there is a direct link between what's happening in your life and a God who loves you, and I don't want to confuse people by also talking of a God of wrath and all that kind of stuff. That just is, to me, is an unfair way to look at him. So I see it more as, there's someone who loves you enough to step into time and help you personally,
Right. And give you a chance to fix things that went wrong in the past. Or not, or even not fix them, but to show you that something that went wrong in the past actually moved you towards a better future.
Yeah.
Which I think happens sometimes. When you look at it in the moment, you think, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me.
Right.
And then later you can look back and say, wow, if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be here.
And the reason I still look like I do now is because I slept in this today, and I got up just a few minutes before. Luckily, I had an alarm that said we were meeting, but I had a call last night from Canada that lasted for 3 hours,
Wow.
and it was a producer who had worked on my first real album, and he was calling and just saying we got to get back to working again. Well, we had a fight, and I thought we'd never speak again. And he's calling me and saying, please forgive me. Let's get back together and start working again. And it couldn't have come at a more encouraging time. So it's just weird. I mean, you know how when that happens and you just feel like an electric thing go through
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
that's how I was just amazed that he was calling me back. But again, it was something completely out of left field. I would have not known that could have happened. And yet it could set the stage for future records or
Right.
whatever. So
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Who is your favorite character other than Skip? You're not allowed to say Skip because he's you and we know you like yourself. So,
yeah.
so other than him, of all the characters that you had to create, who's your favorite?
Yvette is my favorite. She is based on a friend of mine who I went to Africa with on that same time that
Mm-hmm.
me and Cherie went, and she is the eternal optimist. Everything is flowers, and Jesus loves you, and and the first time I met her was in 1980, and I was definitely in a rough place spiritually, and she walked up, grabbed my face, and said, "You're beautiful, and I love you, and Jesus loves you." And I was like, "What a weirdo!"
Yeah.
And and but before it was over, she that first meeting, she had me agreeing to come in and work with her ministry. And I was like, the last thing I wanted to do is hang out with Christians, you know what I mean? And yet, because she was so sweet and loving, and that's how I see Yvette. It's like, yeah, Yvette's been through some stuff, but she knows who she really is, and she's kind of proud of what her heavenly Father has done in her life, and she wants to share it with people. So
Right.
I just thought she was the most I don't know, the most, I don't want to say ethereal, but it's almost like she's in a different place because she's talking to Jesus, and as if he's right there.
Right. Right.
and and for someone who's not used to that, you go, is that lady crazy? And so that's kind of where I saw her.
Well, and I loved that character too. I found her to be, she was very refreshing, and she kind of comes in right at the right time in the story where you've got, what is the young girl's name, the granddaughter?
Oh, Monique.
Monique. All of a sudden my mind went blank. So
Yeah.
when Monique meets her, Monique needs someone in her life who is like stable and sure and knows what direction is forward, because Monique doesn't have any clue what direction is forward. In fact, she's not sure there is a direction at all, and she's very, just kind of sideways. And then she meets this woman who just kind of like takes her under the arm and says, come with me, and I'm going to show you the way. And Monique thought of her often, and would often,
Yeah.
throughout the story, she'd kind of go back in that place and think, I want to be more like that.
Right.
And I think in a lot of ways, we all want to be more that way, that ability to be sure of who we are, that everything's good in the way we're going, that everything's fine. And most of us don't feel that way. And so to have a character like that, it was kind of nice. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now the story, there was one part you were asking earlier about some things actually being true.
Yeah.
But when Monique's husband was talking about a gang that he had been in, and the guy said, what do you want, fire from heaven? That literally happened to me one time. I was so scared. I met this guy, and he had two Dobermans on the street. It was 3:00 in the morning, and he was on something big time. And when we started talking, the only thing I could think of was to ask him if he was a Christian. And the guy I was with, when I said that, the guy just went berserk. And so the guy I was with locked the doors, and he sat in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with this crazy guy and his two Dobermans. And he goes, after he cussed me for about 5 minutes, he goes, "Are you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Prove it." And I leaned right up in his face and said, "What do you want? Fire from heaven?" And he took off. I have no idea to this day, and what's really weird is we were unloading musical, speakers and stuff from
Right.
after doing a dance. And so that's why we were downtown anyway. And when we get in the store and then start going back out to the car to bring in equipment, I looked, and the guy, I couldn't find him anywhere. It's like he disappeared.
Yeah.
So
You scared him. There's something about that just terrified him, and off he ran. Right. I love that. So was there any research involved at all in your story, or did this all just come from your imagination?
The only research I did was about the car, because I didn't know anything about a Hudson. I just knew that that sounded like a classic car no one else would be driving.
Right.
So I didn't know if they had turn signals, or if air conditioning was available, or what size engine it was. So I did go up and look, and the picture that I used when I made the artwork for that was somebody's, just a picture in a magazine, basically, that I changed to a different color so I wouldn't get sued or whatever. But yeah,
I love it. Are you still writing? What's next for you?
Well, I just finished a book called Letters to the Kids. And I've got 3 kids that are adults now, and they all have kids. And so I got 7 grandkids. But when they were little, we found out that after they started writing, that whenever there was a conflict or whatever, they would write me a letter, and that would take out all emotion, and you could get your point across to Dad without getting the lecture or whatever. So we worked that to where, like I would say a rule. Here's the new rule, because I'm the dad. That's why.
Right.
And
because
so
I said so.
Right. And I couldn't put myself in their position, because I was, of course I was already correct anyway. But
well, you were
anyhow,
the dad.
so my kids would then slip a letter under the bedroom door, and I'd read it, and it'd say, "The reason I wanted to go to prom with this boy is blah, blah, blah." And they were like, I had told one of the girls she has to bring him over to let me meet him. And that was the most horrible thing I could have done. And so my letter back to her was, look, I need to know that he sees how much you're worth. And if he's going to treat you bad, he needs to know that they'll never find any pieces of him when I'm done. So yeah, I want him to be afraid.
Yes.
So that kind of thing went on and on. Anyway, the book is actual letters back and forth between all of us while they were growing up, and then at the end, as adults, they write to me, and we're hoping that it's going to keep that going, with my grandkids. I'm sorry, my cat is just.
That's all right. That is a wonderful story. So that is finished. Is it available?
It's not published yet. Because I did it and I didn't format it correctly. It would already be online if I had formatted it correctly. But Cherie is working on it, the girl
Super.
in Mexico,
Yeah.
and so it should be. We were hoping for the end of September. We'll see.
Okay. Okay. And what's the name of this one?
It's called Letters to the Kids and the Chronicles of Ted. So
Okay.
it tells the my true life story, and it goes through the whole thing. And then I even I wrote out my own funeral because I went to a friend of mine, his funeral, and I was so displeased about how they used that as a chance to scare people, scare the hell out of people.
Yeah. Scare people straight. Yeah.
And it's like, look, why aren't we celebrating this guy's life instead of you trying to get another notch on your belt, preacher man? And so I wrote my own funeral and explaining to everybody that, up there's no time. So you're already here. So don't blow your minds too bad. But
Right.
so, um, anyway, just stuff like that. And then I wrote some weirdo stories that's called This Is Fiction, right? So there's like there was one story that is unbelievable, but it's absolute truth. I was bused from the small town that I lived in to another town to go to school. My parents wanted me to go to Christian school, and the bus that they took me in was the special bus. So that because it was going to town, you rode the special bus, and it was the true short bus, special bus, and
Right.
there was the bus driver and me, and then One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on wheels. It was crazy, but this one kid was in my grade growing up, and I hadn't seen him for years. I thought he'd moved away, but he had got sent to this special school, and he had some real emotional problems and stuff. So I sit by him, and he starts, proposing to me an event that I won't say, but oh my gosh, there's no way I'm doing that. And so I moved to the front of the bus instead of sitting with him, and which made him mad. And so everybody conspired against me. They get this one kid to come up and flip me off, and except he uses the wrong finger. And so he's like, he does that, and the guy goes, "Wrong finger, Dirk." So he goes with the other hand. So
Oh, how
that
funny.
song. Then after I did this, my editor said, you can't use people's real names. I said, well, I just used their first name. So she said, no, you still can't do that without getting permission from them. So I named everybody in the story Malcolm because I don't know any Malcolms. So everybody is like Wrong Finger Malcolm or my ex-wife Malcolm. So
I love that. That's really good. So, hey guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have the opportunity to win a digital copy of The Farmboy, The Tomboy, Jesus Freaks, and Divine Interventions. Just find the post, tell me something you liked or learned from this podcast, and you will be in the drawing. So, Ted, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about your books, talk with you maybe about your music, which we really didn't touch on, how do they do that?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and my email is ted.aukerman@gmail.com. So anybody that wants to, just to make sure you put in the title that it's not about my sighting.
Seriously, that it's they're not talking to you about your car warranty, that they actually want to speak
Right.
to you, right?
Yes.
Right. And do you have a special place for people who maybe want to listen to your music?
It's on all the downloading platforms, but if they want to listen for free, they can hear my newer stuff. I generally put up on a place called Reverbnation.com.
Okay. Super.
And if you just slash Ted Aukerman, then it'll bring it up. There's even one for Skip, because when Skip was helping write the book, Skip wrote some non-Christian songs. And so the way I dealt with it was, Skip's an agnostic; he can't help it. But Ted has to have the Christian music on his side.
I see. So Skip, so you allow yourself this little side gig as Skip, who doesn't always. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Well, Ted, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I've really enjoyed your work, and I'm looking forward to seeing your newest stuff come out.
Thank you.
We didn't talk too much about that, but I really do like the book of the Women of the Mountain. What was it named?
Daughters of Green Mountain Gap.
Daughters of Green Mountain. Yeah. Well, if everyone makes up a title for my book, that means they like it too, right?
They like it too, right?
It's the yellow book.
It's the yellow book with the really long title. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.